This is Real Deal Sports Talk with KP, July 16th, 2018.
Mr. Green.
I'm found to be the nicest. On the mic it with rhyme right in my mind states gone cipher divine righteous. This is the sound of refinement. Extra time spent on every line written. You can hear the difference when I'm rhyming. The barbarian rap writings like Clash of the Titans. I wield the pen like Poseidon holding the golden triton. On the mic I strike faster than vipers and flashes of bolts of lightning. My poetry will leave the Pope enlightened. Whack rappers is pastime, you paid the Pied Piper. As the price just skyrocket, I stand to make a profit. I rap circles and spirals above your favorite artist, like an identifiable flying object. With balls so far over your head, I'm honest to be rhyming in high orbit. If I dumb the metaphors down, you think the sky was falling. Rappers' arms too short to shadow box with the lords in the pantheon of rap. I'm the high exalted, the new God flow. Prepare your offering. I treat the booth like the synagogue, cause the mic's my calling. I should congregate a following, although agnostic. You felt the flow was God sent, further personifying my Messiah complex.
And welcome into Real Deal Sports Talk with your boy KP. How's everybody doing today? It's Monday. It's the beginning of the week. I hope your Monday went well. I hope when you come in and you're listening to the show, you're like, I hope KP gonna bring it today. I hope he's gonna have something for me to, get in my head. Let me think about it a little bit. Something to get nostalgic on maybe a little bit. Something I can disagree with. Something maybe I just do agree with. I'm going to try and bring you a little bit of everything today. Just a little bit. For some of us, it's a rough day. If you're real political, the world of politics, all up in an uproar today. World of sports, you got various things going on today. The home run derby is tonight for those of us that still watch that. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Yesterday we had the end of one of the better World Cups in recent memory, at least to me anyway, as France goes on to win the World Cup yesterday over Croatia. We'll talk about that today. I'm going to get nostalgic at a couple points today. Some childhood memories and some childhood heroes have some things going on and some good news for them going on right now. So, I'm going to try and bring you all kinds of things today. Some baseball, some football, some Hall of Fame, some WWE, some birthdays. But for me to bring it to you, we're going to have to get into it. So we're going to start off, obviously, with yesterday, the World Cup. Great World Cup. I love talking about the World Cup this year on the show. Casual soccer fan. Adamantly admit it. It's out there. I will not profess to be an expert. But this was a great World Cup to me. I thought it was exciting. I thought goals came at amazing times, or back to back, or in bunches. All the shootouts and the penalty kicks. To me, this almost wasn't even real soccer. When I watch here in Colorado a Rapids game or one of the high school games or something like that, you don't see scoring like that. It's a 1-0 game, a 2-1 game. Maybe in a crazy game you see 3 goals by a team. But we had games with 6 goals, games where teams won by 5. Upsets, letdowns, close games, tough games, young squads showing they're here to reckon with in France for years to come. A Croatia team who put themselves together shortly before the tournament, got a new coach shortly before the tournament, believed in themselves, went to work together, figured it out, got on a roll. And just kept playing. They didn't look ahead. They didn't look past the day they were at. And it says a lot for what that team was able to do. coming into this tournament where, yeah, it may be somebody, I was saying I didn't hear any talk about either one of these teams really at the beginning of the tournament. Maybe a little bit about France. But most of it about France was, look at the young core France is building. You could look at this young kid, this 19-year-old. You didn't hear a lot about Croatia at all. At least I didn't. Now, maybe it's out there more in deeper pockets of this world. But to me, for what Croatia did, coming from a much smaller country, we talked about the population on the last show, 66 million versus 4 million. Coming from that large of a disparity in population and being able to put together this team so quickly, to gel so quickly. Because in this modern game, in this modern World Cup time, these teams don't spend a lot of time playing against these other teams. They don't spend a lot of time playing together and building a team and gelling and figuring out a system and a style and going through and being successful and finding this piece and changing this piece and tuning this. No, these are guys that all play somewhere else most of their time. And for a tournament like this, for a tournament like the Olympics, they bring their best back together and try and throw this team together really quick. Here's the national team. And you have a team like Croatia who has some of the better players. Some players that play in big leagues for big teams. In the Championship League. For Real Madrid. For a Barcelona. I think it's Barcelona. I might be wrong on that. So it gave him a fighter's chance, having some of these better players come back and play on this team that's quickly put together. France was able to have, larger population, larger developmental soccer program going on. So when it comes to this national time, when it comes to the World Cup time, France is able to go, okay, we know these kids are playing well. We know these guys are playing good. We're going to put all of them together. We're going to filter in a little bit. We'll mix in the youth where we can. And we're going to take advantage of that. And it worked for him. It worked for him very well, specifically in this game. Going against an older Croatia team. A team in Croatia that had spent a lot of time going, max minutes, penalty kicks through their, tournament. So congratulations to France. At 2-1 at halftime. But Croatia at half, to me, they looked like they were starting to find a groove. They were starting to put the pressure on. They were starting to get that momentum. They looked like they were getting ready to turn that game around and have it be in their favor. Then you come early in the second half, maybe right just before the midway point of the second half. France scores 2 relatively back-to-back goals within a few minutes. Puts them up 4-1. Everybody at that point is thinking, okay, it's 3 goals, but this is a crazy World Cup. Who knows what's going to happen? Croatia gets that easy goal just after the midway point, maybe 15 minutes left in the second half, where France's goalie turns the ball over and Croatia was able to knock it in, making it 4-2. Then the rest of the time, I'm sitting there, and I'm willing to bet a whole lot of people were sitting there. Croatian fans were sitting there going, let's just get one more. Let's get that pressure on them. Let's see what happens if it's within 1 and the time's running out. Will they break? Can we get it to penalty kicks? Can we get it to extra time? Can this World Cup continue? But no, it did not. France did not fold. They held strong. They kept pressure on. In fact, they almost scored again later in the remaining time. France had all the momentum. They outpowered them. They outran them. And they continued to pressure much better as the game went along. And ultimately, that's what did it for them, in my opinion. Still, congrats again to Croatia for what they were able to accomplish. Congratulations to France. You get to be the World Cup champs until the next round where, we haven't had a repeat since 62, I believe, the 58-62 team. So we'll see if they're able to repeat in 4 years. Some experts, some prognosticators are saying this team is set to dominate for a while with their young core and some of their younger veterans as well. So we'll have to see. That's all I can say. It's the World Cup. I can't really break soccer down past what I saw. It was a hard-fought, competitive game. Ultimately, I think Croatia just didn't have quite as much as France did. They didn't have the speed, ultimately, that France did. And I think they became tired as that game went on. The more dire it seemed, the harder it seemed for them to come back. You could see that exhaustion start to set in with some of their guys. The body language started to change. And you see things like that most sports fans, most people who have competed in athleticism can pick up on. But to their merit, they didn't give up. They continued to play. They continued to take their shots. They continued to try. They were picking people's pockets. And they didn't get dirty. They didn't get frustrated. It was a great match to watch. Great World Cup. All the credit to the teams and the players. Can't wait for the next one. 4 years. Here we go. All right, let's get nostalgic real quick. First nostalgic thing of the day. Today, Barry Sanders turns 50 years old. Happy birthday, sir. I had the honor and privilege of meeting you back in the early 90s. I believe it was 1991, 92. You, early in your career, giving back to the kids, even here in Denver, Colorado. You came out, you coached at a David Tate football camp that took place at DU. And you coached the running backs, and primarily for my team at the time, I was a lineman, linebacker. But knowing that you were there, that you were one of the coaches, I had aspirations to be a fullback. I was like, I'm going to go do the running back drills with Barry Sanders. And a couple funny stories we'll get to real quick. You had asked for a football. We were looking for a football to start the drill, and I was like, oh, I got a football with me. I brought a football, and I ran over to my bag, got my football and my pen, and brought it back like a foolish little kid who just wasn't thinking at the time. And you graciously were like, you know what? Yes, I'll sign your football after practice. Right now, though, I don't want to mess up the autographs that are on here, and we need to find a different football. And I was embarrassed because that's when it clicked in my head what was going on and the mistake I had just made. But you handled it great. You were a great coach. And I went home as a Barry Sanders / Lions fan at that point from that time. Maybe even broke my dad's heart because I wasn't a Broncos fan anymore. But you were such a genuine person, such a good person. You worked with the kids so well. I can even remember we ran 40s with you, and we raced you. Everybody got to race you, and if you lost, you were out. And then everybody who moved forward got to the end. And there was this one camper kid. He was probably 16, 18 years old, somewhere in there. I don't really remember. And he almost got you, right? At the finish line, he almost got you. And you kind of were like, wait a second, nah, we're going again. We're going again. This kid almost got me. And then you raced him again, and you took him that time. But great memories of the great Barry Sanders. Love watching him throughout his career. Good dude. Glad I got to meet him. Would love to have him on the show sometime. Barry Sanders, 50 years old today. NFL great. Other things taking place in the NFL today. Today was the day for the franchise tags for teams to work out long-term deals with these players and or sign them to a franchise deal for 1 year. According to multiple reports out there, out of the big names, Le'Veon Bell, LaMarcus Joyner, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Ezekiel Ansah, none of them signed long-term deals with their current clubs. Le'Veon Bell, it sounds like, came the closest with Pittsburgh, but it just ultimately did not get worked out. It also ultimately sounds like this could be his last year in Pittsburgh. That's the business side. I know other reports are saying he would love to stay in Pittsburgh. He would love to retire a Steeler, but the business side can get in the way. His agent is saying that the Steelers decided they wanted to play the position and not pay the player. And hey, if you fall into that and you lose a player, that can happen. Some teams, they'll do the opposite. They'll pay the player and then they find out they overpaid that player. And they can hurt their club the opposite way. That's the business side of it. You can't fault these guys for going out and trying to get theirs. LaMarcus Joyner, that one to me with the Rams was the most suspicious. You would have thought they would have gone Aaron Donald to try and get that figured out there. Still trying to get his long-term deal figured out. Probably a lot of these guys last year where they're currently at. DeMarcus Lawrence probably has the best chance of staying in his current position with the Cowboys. He has kind of gotten progressively better, but he hasn't been consistent. He has those splash games similar to Ezekiel Ansah, where he'll have 3 sacks in a game, 3 sacks in the next game, and then no sacks for 4 or 5 games. And you want to see more consistency from a guy who can get to that 14, 15 sack range, because if you get consistency, now you're talking about that 18, 19, 20 sack range, and you're talking about Defensive Player of the Year range, you're talking about playoff range, you're talking about impacting a defense in a much greater way than splashing here and there in between injuries, which both DeMarcus Lawrence and Ezekiel Ansah for the Detroit Lions have struggled with so far in their careers. But they also have the ability to put up a 3-sack game, to put up back-to-back weeks of 3-sack games. These are guys you definitely want to have on your team, but the long-term ramifications financially for a ball club to your, salary cap and all those kind of things, can you take the risk? Is the risk worth the reward? Or can we say, okay, we can't do it now. We're willing to, and we understand that you might leave in the off season, but you give us a solid year this year, okay? And we are going to be prepared then to offer you our best deal. Is that something that is being said to some of these guys? I know the Le'Veon Bell, from what's being reported by Adam Schefter and others, that one went right down to the deadline. Within the last 90 minutes, they were still trying to work it out. Some of these other guys we haven't heard as much. Le'Veon Bell was the big one, I guess, in this group that we all wanted to hear. But this year, all of these guys will be playing under their franchise 1-year contracts. So we'll have to see how it goes for them. Hopefully they all avoid injury. Nothing serious. And they can go out there, ball, and earn a great contract either with their current club because they earned it, or with somebody else who respects what they've been able to get done so far in their career and thinks they can add to their club. Because all of these guys, if they hit the free agency market next year in 2019 and they're not somehow franchised again, like the Kirk Cousins situation when he was with Washington, then the 2019 class just got much deeper for free agents. Much more interesting for free agents with these 4 names. Now, 2 guys who switched teams this offseason, Richard Sherman and Aqib Talib, both having interesting comments this week about their former clubs. Sherman basically saying that Seattle kind of has lost their way, and through a number of mistakes, they just ended up kind of just losing their way and moving off from what it was that made him successful and what it was that made him great. And Talib saying that if he had one bit of advice for the Broncos, that basically you can't get rid of all your dogs. You can't get rid of, those guys that give you a little bit of nasty. And there was a fan who called into a Denver radio station or tweeted in or texted in and said, the dogs are necessary. Every team needs a dog. That guy that you love to have on your team, but you hate on everybody else's team. And that's true. You do need that guy. You need that guy because, one, your team rallies around him. He gives you that toughness. He gives you a little bit of swag. He gives you that, you're not going to come in here and push my team around. You did something to my offense, and I'm a defensive player. Here I come. Okay, you did something to my defense. I'm a dog on offense. Here I come. You got to have some dogs on both sides of the ball. Not a bunch. Maybe one or two. Maybe they're not on the field at the same time. But there is something to that. And maybe your dog's your coach. Maybe it's a guy like Wade Phillips. Maybe it's a guy like Greg Williams who's willing to call a play knowing you're going to get, penalized. But sometimes it just has to be done. And that doesn't mean they're out there intentionally trying to hurt anybody or they're out there intentionally trying to, break the rules. But if it's, okay, at the end of this play, I want you to go through the whistle. I want you to knock him over the pile. I want you to clean it up. Give him a little pop at the end of the play. You got to have a little bit of that. Let him know you're here. You're going to be here all day. So I agree with that. Now, as far as Sherman and what he's saying about the Seahawks lost their way, maybe there's something to that. Maybe just like when it crumbled at the end of Pete Carroll's time at USC, we're starting to see it crumble and maybe the end of his time in Seattle. Because he can coach some teams at the top of the world, but for whatever reason, there's no base. It crumbles. It falls. Even when there's pieces there, even when there's you have a Russell Wilson. Maybe Seattle's rebuilding. Maybe I'm looking too into it and just trying to find connections that aren't there. It's been done before. I've done it before. That's how you keep a show going. You got to find things to talk about. But lost their way. You think about it. Earl Thomas wants out. Cam Chancellor, career-ending injury. Cliff Averill, career-ending injury. Irvin moves on to Oakland. Bennett, he's out. So the defense is all, different. Going to be different for the most part. You got a couple guys left. Offensively, Tom Cable's not there anymore. So that offensive line's not working the same as it used to. You don't have Marshawn Lynch. You still got Doug Baldwin. Curse is out the door. You got to rework your offense now. You bring in Penny. You're looking for, for solo. I don't even know what to say on it. It didn't seem like a long-term plan was in place. It seemed like we're winning now. Let's keep winning now. Except for how they didn't pay Russell Wilson until the end of his rookie deal. So they're in a tough spot right now. They have to rebuild their base. And hopefully fast enough that they can still get something out of a Russell Wilson. And not just have him save their season and keep them between the 6-10 and 9-7 range for the next foreseeable future. So maybe in that sense they have lost their way. And they're not that team that they once were. And they're not going to dominate anymore. And in that division where you see a San Francisco getting better, and you see an LA team getting better, and you see an Arizona team that's kind of hanging around as long as they have Larry Fitzgerald, maybe they have lost their way. Maybe you do need some dogs on your team when you go 5-11 for the Denver Broncos last year. All right, let's change subjects. Let's move over to baseball. It is the All-Star break. Some teams went into the All-Star break very well. Some teams did not. Some teams have amazing records at the All-Star break. Some players are doing great at the All-Star break. Some players we need to see some more out of in the second half. Some teams we need to see more out of in the second half. Now tonight we have the Home Run Derby. The Home Run Derby, when I was a kid, I loved watching it. I loved watching it in the early 90s, throughout the 90s with Bonds and McGuire and Griffey and Frank Thomas and Jim Tomei. And, you had the guys. They went out. They participated. They were the best hitters. You didn't see him fall into some ridiculous, stupid slump after participating in the home run derby in the second half of the season. And they were the stars. It's like the dunk contest. It used to have the stars. Now it's got athletic guys. Well, this year I don't even know what to say about who they have. There's one player from the American League in the home run contest this year. Everybody else of the 8 participants, the 7 other guys are National League guys. Jesus Aguilar from the Brewers. Okay. You don't really think of him as a home run hitter. He's got 24 home runs on the season, so he's leading the National League. But it's not a name that pops out to you. It's not a Nolan Arenado. It's not a Bryce Harper, who is participating. But it's a relatively unknown guy. He's Javier Baez. Okay, well, he's got 19 home runs, so he's only 5 behind the guy who's leading the National League. He's the Cubs. It's a market guy. He likes to be a showman. He's an entertainer. So he's going to go out there and try and put on a show. But again, not a guy you would expect to be for the home run derby. The one American League, Alex Bregman from the Astros. How many does he has? 20 home runs. 4th in the National League. Freddie Freeman for the Braves. He has 16 home runs. I mean, it used to be the guys. Bryce Harper. You think of him kind of as a home run hitter. And he's got 23 so far this year. Rice Hoskins from the Phillies. He hit 11 last August as a rookie in his first 18 games. He hasn't matched that, however, this year. He's only got 14 home runs so far. 14 home runs in the home run derby. Why? I don't want to see this. Mac Muncy of the Dodgers. Okay, he's been on a tear, sure. He's got 22 home runs. I mean, he's been killing it since he came up from AAA. Kyle Schwarber. We all thought he was going to be much more of a home run hitter. He's got 18 on the season, which, okay, that's decent. But it used to be the guys. All of the big home run hitters used to participate. The NBA dunk contest, all of the big names that were dunkers used to participate. You don't see that anymore. It's not what it used to be. It's not as fun as it used to be. You don't have Griffey out there with his hat backwards and his perfect swing hitting home runs. You just don't see it. But nonetheless, the All-Star Game, it's going to take place tomorrow night. National League, American League. The American League has had the upper hand as of late. Game kicks off about 7:30 Eastern time. There's a red carpet before that if you want to check that out. It's going to take place on Fox. I mean, the All-Star games, I think they should just be All-Star breaks. Name the teams, give these some guys some kind of a bonus, some kind of a fan experience, make it an exhibition. I don't know. But the idea that these are competitive games and the outcome somehow manages to affect something else in the World Series or, anything else throughout the season, I'm not for that. I think it's a little ridiculous. I think the games are getting a little played out in all of Major League sports. I mean, you pick out of the top 4, and the All-Star games, it's not what they used to be. And I don't know if that's the players, if it's because of the amount of money that's involved now, they don't play as hard, they don't take it as serious. I don't know what it is, but they're not as fun to watch anymore. It doesn't seem like they're as glamorous and as glorious as they used to be. I think the better stories right now at the All-Star break are where some of these teams stand. How the Red Sox have been on a tear, right? They're 68 wins at the All-Star break. The Yankees, 62 wins at the All-Star break. Those two teams are running out of the American League. One of them will win the East. One of them will be a wild card. Cleveland leading the Central with 52 wins. They are pulling away in that division. They have a 7.5 game lead at the All-Star break. If they can, make maybe a couple moves or get a couple guys hot, who knows how fast they can pull away in that division. The Astros and Mariners have fallen back by 5 games, but remember, just 2 short weeks ago, they were in first place. Another good run, they're right there. But the Astros, defending champs, 64 wins at the All-Star break. The Mariners, 58 wins. Oakland Athletics, who are still in it, 55 wins. I picked the Angels as one of my teams to watch because of Mike Trout, who's having an amazing season on a horrible team, and Shohei Ohtani, who got hurt for a while and is now back making plays. In the National League, surprisingly, the Phillies have a half-game lead over the surprising Atlanta Braves. In the Central, you have the Cubs, who got a 2.5 game lead right now over Milwaukee, but Milwaukee's played 5 more games than they have. St. Louis just fired their manager. They haven't been doing very well this season. I thought they'd be better than they were because they're the Cardinals. Heck, why wouldn't they be? And in the West, who wants to win the West? Anybody? I mean, the Padres don't. They're 14.5 games out. But the Dodgers have a half-game lead on the Diamondbacks. It's now only a 2-game lead on the Rockies, who have been on a tear ever since I completely and everybody else had started writing them off. The Rockies have just been on an amazing tear. In fact, when we talked about them last, they had a run differential of around a -44, and they, in the last 16 games, have been able to change that to a -1 run differential. That's an amazing turnaround in 16 games. Just so happens, 16 games ago, Nolan Arenado got a little toy doll of himself. So maybe this is the team that we all expected to see the Rockies be throughout the season, and maybe now they're going to start playing a little more consistently this way, which I know here in Colorado we'd love to see. We want to see a good baseball team. Colorado, we love our sports. Love them. Hockey, basketball, baseball, football, soccer, lacrosse. We love our sports. And the Giants are only 4 games out, and they look like garbage beginning in the season. So that's where we stand at the All-Star break. The Rockies, before the trade deadline, the Rockies need to pick somebody up. They can't let the Dodgers and Diamondbacks, 2 teams that are more aggressive, more willing to make trades, go out and with this close in the division and be the team that makes that splash and gets that splash trade, and then you're on the outside looking in again, hopefully trying to get a wild card move. The Rockies need to be that aggressive. You are 2 games out. Your team is playing hot. Your pitchers are doing better. That's going to help your bullpen. Wade Davis, your closer, is back on track. Cargo's hitting. Story's hitting. Arenado's hitting. LeMahieu's playing better. Chuck Nasty's doing his thing and getting back on track. Gray came back from AAA, gave you a really good outing the other night. Freeland looks like he wants to be the ace, like he's climbing the mountain. So they need to be a team that's going out to be aggressive before the trade deadline. They need to be trying to find a guy or maybe 2, solidify the bullpen, maybe get a guy who can give you some power. You might see the Brewers, who are, apparently finalists for Machado, making a big move to try and do something there in the Central. I don't really see any of the teams in the East, or in the American League, making any big moves. Unless somehow the Yankees are able to get Machado. Which it doesn't sound like right now they're a finalist for. But the second half of the season, the Red Sox-Yankees, can't wait to watch how that ends up. That's going to be fun. Seeing how Cleveland can quietly stroll into the playoffs as a team nobody's going to be talking about. They should be able to quietly just continue to do their thing. 7.5 game lead. Stroll kind of right into the playoffs, hopefully. Nobody's going to be talking about them with Houston and Boston and New York and Seattle and Oakland being this up-and-coming, team, 7-3 over their last 10 entering the break. Can Houston hold off both Seattle and Oakland in the American League West? It's going to be a fun second half. This is when baseball really starts for me and when I really start getting into it. Because we're what? 90-plus games through. Maybe 99 games, almost 100 games through the season for some teams. So now let's get into it. Now the games are starting to get interesting. We're almost to those September games where it's almost all games against the division. Let's see who's going to get tough. Let's see who's going to make the move. Let's see who's going to make a run. Because by the beginning of August, middle of August, teams start falling off. Teams start looking towards next year. And the cream rises to the top. So it's that time for baseball. Let's see it. The heat of the summer. It's your show. The World Cup's over. Basketball's not going on. You got a small break before the NFL season starts. Let's go baseball. Let's watch some games. Let's see some teams do some things. And hopefully the Rockies here in Colorado, I'm telling you, they're a move or so away from being able to take that division there in the West. All right, Kirk Cousins. He put out his 5 favorite sports movies on Twitter. He put Remember the Titans, Field of Dreams, Rudy, Greatest Game Ever Played, and Miracle. The story about the USA hockey team beating Russia back in the 1980 Olympics. Now, I put 5 best sports movies of all time. To me, they're the best of all time because these are my favorite movies. So why wouldn't they be the best of all time? So my list consists of Rudy, my favorite sports movie ever. Fell in love with this movie as a young kid. The football side of it, the motivation of it, the going out on your own against other people's wishes and doing what you wanted to do, what your goal was, what your dream was, not letting the naysayers take you out, working hard, finally getting that opportunity at the end of your senior year, at the end of the game. I mean, there's so much sports and what you get from athletics and the love of the game that's in that. And it's not so much about the technicality of the plays and the way the football scenes was shot and the way the coach said things and the way practices were run or the way the players lined up. But it encompassed so much of the heart and the soul of a football player. And it connected to me on that level. So I love that movie. I'll always love that movie. Radio. Love that movie. That movie actually made me cry because, again, that encompasses so much of the love of sports and the love of the game and what you can get from being around a team and part of a team and what that can bring to a person's life and how that can better a person's life and how we can all learn from each other, especially in a situation where maybe we thought we couldn't. Legend of Bagger Vance with Will Smith, great movie. Thinker movie, it's a golf movie. So not one of those high-action sports, not one of the big sports, but a great movie. It's one of those it's got some lines in it that just make you go, okay, yeah, I do need to think about it, calm down, change my perspective. So that one, Sandlot, all-time classic, and Major League baseball movie from back in the day. That is my top 5 of all time for sure. T.O., he has made it. He is one of the top of all time. He has gotten into the Hall of Fame. He is now saying that he has decided to do his thing at Tennessee Chattanooga. Yes, indeed, because he got snubbed, in his opinion, the first time around. And he's doing it for everybody who's been snubbed or maybe is going to be snubbed. Now, when I heard the announcement of where he was going to do it, I thought, okay, you know what, that's kind of cool. But here's what you do. It's Hall of Fame weekend. right? You go do a ceremony at the college that weekend to rep where you came from, to give them some love. Maybe a fundraiser worked into it. It's part of the weekend. But when it comes to the ceremony, you show up because this is a special team that you just became a part of. And Skip Bayless is already out there calling you the team destroyer, and now you're ruining, the greatest team that has ever been assembled and alienating people already. And to an extent, some people you have. Regardless of what your intentions or how you feel about it, your actions have repercussions. And in some case, people are going to feel negative about that, and some people do. You've heard Chris Carter talk about it. You've heard Michael Irvin say that it's right the Hall of Fame is not going to honor T.O. at the ceremony separately when he's not even going to show up. You've heard other Hall of Famers express their discontent with it. And look, if I'm T.O., I get it. Your feelings are hurt. You deserve better for the accomplishments you made on the field, and not the character and some of the conflicts that you had should not have taken away from that. Okay, you have a legitimate argument. Present an intelligent speech at the event about how to overcome and stay mentally strong and being yourself and an individual and making sacrifice and what that means and how hard it is, and express that to the youth. Don't go out and set yourself aside. Do your separate thing, which at first, again, I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. He's going to go back to his college and do it. At least he's doing that. And then I saw, okay, he's making shoes for his fellow enshrinees, the specialized shoes he had made. But there's something to tradition in that aspect, to that team, to those other members, to those guys who made it to that level. And what that brotherhood, what that fraternity is in football. And unfortunately, in this case, that missed T.O. He missed it badly. He missed it so badly. Almost as bad as Hulk Hogan did a couple years ago when he got himself kicked out of the WWE Hall of Fame, which it was announced today that after Hogan's 2006 racist inflammatory comments, when he was suspended in 2015, that now the WWE is welcoming him back. T.O. has been welcomed back also. Welcomed back also. He got into the Hall of Fame. They said, okay, look, yes, some of us punished you for your antics, but you are an all-time great. Welcome to the club. Hogan's been welcomed back to the club. This is my second nostalgic thing. Hogan, I was big into WWE, Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan, so when this happened in 2006, it hurt me to the core. I'm glad he's trying to make amends and apologize and work with kids and make it better. The WWE says after a 3-year suspension, Hulk Hogan has been reinstated to the WWE Hall of Fame. This second chance follows Hogan's numerous public apologies and volunteering to work with young people, where he is helping them learn from his mistake. These efforts led to the recent induction into the Boys and Girls Clubs of America Alumni Hall of Fame. So, as a Hogan fan, keep doing what you're doing. Keep making it better. Sir, take your vitamins. Say your prayers. You're back in the WWE. I hope you can go out there and continue to give back. Continue to let the message be out there that what you did was wrong. What you said was wrong. Because that did hurt a lot of us that grew up with the Hogan aspect. That hurt more than when you changed and did the NWO thing. That was just kind of cool. But this hurt. This changed who you were in a lot of people's minds. And it's up to you to now fix that. I'd love to talk to you about it on the show. I'd love to talk about all that you do with the kids on the show. If you are interested in being on the show, Hulk Hogan, Mr. Hogan, please reach out to me. I will reach out to you. Love to have you on. Until next time, you know how we do, everybody. Just keep it real.
Yo, who balls iller than all lyrics and song killers? I dissolve niggas with fireballs from the jaw spilling. No hard feelings, but y'all niggas is all filler. Rip apart buildings and standing taller than God Shiller.